Hello. Sorry that I didn't get something posted earlier today. Had kind of a busy day, but I wanted to share with you guys. I know that every teacher does things a little bit differently. I'm a Montessori teacher. Even different Montessori teachers do things differently, but I wanted to show you how we handle doing research. I teach first, second, and third grade, but this can work for any older kids. Can do this a little more independently, and maybe more on like a computer where they're moving things around. My kids, I like to have them write on little slips of paper. You can't really see, but I'm just folding. Normally I have my handy dandy paper cutter, but I don't right now. So if you just take, I make my slips I cut regular sheet of copy paper in fourths. So if you just want to fold it in fourths and then cut, but it doesn't have to be perfect. I've just found that tends to be the right size for a sentence for my first through third graders. Although, it's all over the board. Some of them write huge, some of them write really tiny, but this is kind of a good amount of space for most of them to write a sentence. And the way we do our research projects, which they're welcome to do anytime. So kids in 251, I want your parents to know that you know how to do research and that you can be doing any research at any time. But a lot of times especially the younger kids, start out with animals. They just want to learn about their favorite animal. It can be people, it can be places, it can be anything that is of interest to them. I always say, I don't care what you're researching as long as you're doing some research. So I just have, this is just something we have at home, a children's encyclopedia. So I'm just going to flip to a random page. Oh, right here, pets. Although that might not help for one specific thing. Okay, Mars. We're going to talk about Mars. So what I usually have my students do is I have them take one of their research slips, not for writing, but just as a bookmark, because especially my first graders, when they first come in, they may be able to read some things by themselves. They may have a partner read with them, but what they tend to want to do is copy straight out of the book. And we try to get them to not do that and to put things in their own words. So what I normally have them do is read just a sentence or two and then close the book, put it off to the side, and then take one of their slips and write one thing that they learned. So let me get back to here. If I read, named after the Roman god of war, this rocky planet has huge volcanoes, ice caps, and deep canyons. And I close the book, and then I say, what did I learn? And you might have to open the book again to get the spelling of things. That's fine. I just don't want them to have the book open and then put their slip, because then they're going to copy exactly what it says. And I want them to kind of be thinking about what it says and processing that and then putting it in their own words. So again, the sentence was, named after the Roman god of war, this rocky planet has huge volcanoes, ice caps, and deep canyons. So what did I learn? Well, I learned that Mars was named after the Roman god of war. I'm not going to put the stuff about the mountains and the ice cap. I'm not going to put any of that extra stuff on here because I just want one fact per slip. And the reason for that is then after we have a bunch of these, and again, it's going to be different for everybody, but my general rule is that I ask my first graders to do 10 slips, I ask my second graders to do 20 slips, and I ask my third graders to do 30 slips. After they have a stack of slips, lots of different facts, then I have these handy dandy sheets. Like I said, most of them start with animals. So these are just different topics. If you're doing a report about animals, that you might have slips about these different topics. And I also made one for people. There's always blank ones, blank spaces, because you might have found things that you might have written slips that don't fit into any of these categories. If I'm going to try to put these in the files just so that they're there for people to use. But if you don't have a printer or whatever, before I made these things up, I used to use just like little scraps of paper. And I don't know if I can move this so you can see my table a little bit. But so let's say I have a stack of slips and I'm going to start sorting through it. And I would just I would read a slip. So this is the next step. First is you have 10, 20, 30, however many you ask your kid to do. Or you could just say, like, read the article. How many things can you tell me about Mars? But after you have your stack of these, then I have them read them one at a time. It's like, Mars was named after the Roman god of war. So maybe that would be like discovery and naming. And I just write that on one of these little slips of paper. And I'm trying to do it so you can see on. And then I just put the slip underneath it. And then I might have like lots of different, if we're doing an animal, I know you guys probably can't read this, but one is appearance, what it looks like, habitat, where it lives, diet, what it eats, behavior, how it acts, relationship with humans, movement, young, like all sorts of different ways to sort the topics, okay? Or the slips. So then we're going to pretend, because I didn't do this, but we're going to pretend that I had like 3 or 4 slips that are under the discovery and naming. Maybe it's the person who first discovered it, maybe it's when it was discovered, why they decided to name it after the god of war, whatever. These are all in one stack, and I usually paper clip them with the little topic on it after I get them all grouped. Then I take one, these are my ideally, these are my paragraphs. And I take one paragraph at a time, and I take the little topic tag off, take the paper clip off, and I read through them and I figure out the order that I want them to be in that paragraph. Like, would it make most sense to say when it was discovered, and then who it was discovered by, and then what they named it, or, I always tell my kid, there's no right answer. This is your opinion. This is your report. This is how you want it to be. But after they've done that, I have them staple, I forgot to bring my stapler, but I have them staple the topic to the slips, all of the slips, just on one side. After it's stapled, then I know that paragraph is in the order that I want it to be in. Then I go through and I have, I don't know, sometimes 3, sometimes 7. I've had kids who have had like 10 to 12 different paragraphs in a report that they were doing, sometimes more. But they have to figure out what order they want their paragraphs to be in. Do they first, if they're doing a report on dogs, do they first want to talk about what dogs look like? Or do they want to talk about where dogs live? And then once they have that, so they're going to have their little paragraphs that are stapled. Once they have that, I have them numbered. So if like discovery and naming is the first paragraph, I just put a 1 on it and I put a circle around it in my little stapled packet of slips so that I know that this is my first paragraph. And we don't do, in my classroom at least, we don't do anything on Chromebooks. They don't use regular laptops. We have Chromebooks. I don't let them type anything until they have done all of the writing. A, because my kids need a lot of practice with writing. B, because sometimes they get a little distracted on Chromebooks and they start looking up pictures of the thing that they're researching instead of actually doing the research. And C, I want them to have that practice of figuring out where does this fit. Sometimes if they just start typing, then it's just like a whole really long paragraph with a bunch of facts about a topic, and it's really hard to follow because they'll talk about what it looks like, and then where it lives, and then its relationship with humans, and then what it looks like again, and then a little bit more about where, and it's a little hard to follow. So I want them to have this practice. Again, I know everybody does it differently. This is how we do research in our classroom. I am going to try to share these. I can't remember off the top of my head if they're Google Docs or Word documents, but either way, I will find a way to share those with you guys. I feel like there was one other thing. Oh, the research slips tend to, when they're in just in the like writing slip phase, they tend to get a little lost if they don't have a place to live. So I usually fold a regular sheet of paper in half like this, and then I just cut a tiny bit off. I should have brought my stapler over so that this would be easier to see. But I cut just a tiny bit off the top, so you can see I just cut half of it at the top, and then I staple, 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 and I write dogs by Miss Cat. And then my slips live in here until I'm done. And then you can also, they can use this as their bookmark when they're reading their source. And then the last thing is at the very bottom is a big slip, and this is always the last paragraph, and it says, I/we, because we have students who work together a lot, found my/our information in the article or book, and then they have to name where they found it, written by blank. Thank you for listening to my/our report. And then this last part is something that they have just always said. This is just my second year at my new school, but the kids have always said that, and I think it's kind of funny, so I put it in here too. It says, any questions, comments, or compliments, because they like to ask for compliments, and they're very good at giving them to each other. So if you guys do end up having your kids do some reports, maybe we could start a thread in here, like a post, and then people could comment with their kids sharing their reports. But that's how we do research. I hope that you guys are all doing okay. Thank you for being so great and sharing so many wonderful ideas with each other. I hope that this page is helping you guys. All right, sorry for the super long post. Bye.